Okay, so let's get started with part 3 of section 1.2 in our genetics notes. Okay, so good news is that part 3 is super short, unlike our last lesson. So for this section, this is the last thing we are looking at in terms of complete Mendelian genetics, which is sex determination. So recall that humans have 46 chromosomes and 23 pairs. 22 pairs of homologous, which means they look alike, are called autosomes. So these are what determine our body traits. When we're talking about sex-linked traits, this is from a purely biological standpoint. So other combinations of chromosomes obviously exist, but for this section, we are just looking at biologically XX female and XY males. For our autosomes, this includes all the traits that we've discussed this far. So fur color, as well as a whole bunch of other ones, such as things like determining the pH of stomach acid. So in addition to this 22 pairs of homologous chromosomes, we also have 1 pair of sex chromosomes, so giving us the total of 23 pairs. So this is what determines the biological sex, either biological male, biological female. Okay, so next here we're going to be looking at a karyotype. So if we look here, comparing these two karyotypes of male versus female, they look very similar, except for the 23rd chromosome. So females' sex chromosomes are homologous, meaning they look alike. Here. Males, the sex chromosomes are different. So XY, you can see here, they are visually different. So this one here is biologically male, and this one is biologically female. So this basically happens across all species, but there is some variation. For the female XX, the chromosomes look exactly alike and look as though they are almost the same as all the other pairs of chromosomes. But if we look at the XY chromosome, the Y is noticeably smaller than the X. So it does not match the X, therefore it is not homologous. So females actually have more genetic information on their chromosomes than males do. This leads to something called sex-linked traits, such as examples like male pattern baldness. So let's work through an example here. So what is the probability of a couple having a boy or a girl? And the chance, so basically the chance of having a female baby or a male baby. So to start, when you have this Punnett square, we don't know which is male or female in the sense that it's not labeled, but we can tell based on the chromosomes. So the XY tells us that this is the male, so this is dad, and then XX is female, so this is mom. What are the chances of having a male versus female baby? So if we get an X from dad and an X from mom, we get a girl. If we get the X from mom but a Y from dad, we have a male. Again, X from mom, X from dad, female, X from mom, Y from dad, you get a male. So essentially, if we look at this, we have 2 females to 2 males in terms of offspring. So the probability is a 1-to-1 probability of male to female. So 50% chance of each. So who determines the sex of the child then is the father. So the father determines the sex of the child because only the father is able to contribute an X or a Y chromosome. Females can only contribute an X chromosome. So they have two X's, they can only contribute an X. So this will either go to a son or a daughter. So the father, therefore, can only pass on the Y or the X. So they determine the sex of the child. Okay, so linked here as well as in the schedule on Teams is this crash course video on genetics. So it is 10 minutes long, so be aware of this. I do highly recommend taking some time to watch it as it's really cool and it's got some fun information. So if you are struggling, I would highly, highly, highly recommend watching this to give you another perspective on genetics. But if you feel like you really understand this and you can't deal with watching a 10-minute video that's cool, then I won't be offended if you skip it. All right, so the last thing to do here is your assignment that is attached to this. So I would like you to work on the practice questions on page 34 and 35 in your notes. So these questions are on complete dominance, which is part 2 and 3 of section 1.2 in the notes. So I will go over these answers in the next video. So that is it for this lesson.